Hello and welcome to the Be Elite podcast, the show where we dive into deep discussions, explore the unexplored, and occasionally get lost along the way. I'm your host, Ben Allgeyer, and it is my job to guide us through uncharted territories of thought and innovation to uncover what makes people truly elite. My guest today is Todd Marriott. Todd's career journey spans from teaching to entrepreneurship. Realizing his true calling lay outside of the classroom, he transitioned from education to building a thriving painting business. After relocating to Florida, Todd ventured into real estate investment, then eventually returned to Kansas City to manage acquisitions for a successful KC investor. After 10 years working for others in the investment world, he built his own company and started wholesaling, flipping, and building houses throughout KC. Today, Todd stands as the CEO of multiple ventures, including a residential real estate operation, a security company, and a painting business. Todd, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. So we like to start off with a segment called Pivot Points. And I know a decent amount about your life from being your business partner. And looking at it, there seems to be a few major pivot points, moments that significantly altered the trajectory of your life. So that's where I want to start with a look back at one of these moments earlier in your career. So you were a teacher, and if I remember correctly, you weren't a teacher very long until you decided to move on from that job. So what was the catalyst that spurred that decision?
I was actually a teacher for about 2 weeks when I decided I didn't want to do it anymore. I knew I had to finish out the year, but I just realized that I was no longer like the master of my future or my world if I was going to stay in that in the teaching, in the education space. So I think it was probably getting yelled at by a parent as a 23-year-old teaching biology and coaching baseball when I realized that I didn't get paid enough for that. So I basically just had to cut ties that year, and I just decided I would figure it out.
What'd you get yelled at for?
That particular kid, got a bad grade on a test, and the parent came in to defend him, and it was just purely lack of study. Had nothing to do with anybody else, and I realized what I was up against, and just didn't feel like fighting that battle.
It's kind of funny. So at that point, you were like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, and just decided. Well, how'd you decide what to do next?
I literally spent about 6 months trying to become a firefighter, and knew some people in that Kansas City Fire Department. Thought I had a pretty good chance of getting on. Thought that was a good opportunity for me to get some like W-2 pay, but also have time available to kind of go do my thing, because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to have an opportunity to kind of control my income, I guess. And just ran into brick wall after brick wall. I aced the exam, written exam, and thought, okay, this is going to happen. And then just something in the interview process never worked out. It was just, I thought it was a done deal. I was told it was a done deal, and it just didn't work out. And so while I was going through that process, my brother-in-law asked me if I wanted to paint a house with him, and I'd never done it. So I just said, sure, I'll try it. He was going to pay me good at the time. I think it was $15 an hour, which 20 years ago, which is pretty good. And he taught me everything to paint that exterior with him. We just spent like 3 days painting the house. And at the end of it, I got paid pretty well. And I was like, I did that. I could look at it and see that I finished it, and I knew exactly what I'd gotten done. And so it felt good to get paid. And then honestly, when friends and family would ask me what I was up to, I just lied and said I was painting houses. And within about a week, I had like 3 bids to do for people. And I realized how easy it was to go do service work, because people just didn't want to do it. And so I started bidding paint work, and it took off from there.
So we'll come back to that, since we now own a couple service-based companies. But how in that process did you explain, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that will listen to this, are going to listen to this, that kind of in the same boat where they're going, I really don't like what I'm doing. I really kind of want to move on to the next phase, but they may have quit, or they may be on a position where they're trying to move on to the next phase of life. And number one, how do you explain that to, at the time you had a wife, right? Do you have any kids?
Yeah. Not at the time, but not long after.
So how do you explain that to your wife? Were you using the same kind of mindset of, hey, honey, I'm painting houses now? Or, I mean, you went from teacher to potentially firefighter to now you're painting houses. How's that conversation happen?
I mean, it was a little awkward. I mean, I think she was nervous. We were young. We were in our 20s, and I think she was a little bit concerned about how we were going to make it. It was, that conversation of, listen, we'll figure it out. So she had to learn to trust me, and I had to understand, what it was going to take to make sure the bills were paid. And it mixed in there, I did take some W-2 jobs that were flexible, that gave me some support there so that I could go do, because painting's kind of a seasonal thing for one, but also as a solopreneur, it's like there's a cycle. You go sell and then you go execute. And while you're executing, it's hard to sell. So you kind of have this like tough cycle to get over where you're never really sure about your next paycheck, but you know you can go get it, but it takes sometimes more time than you want. So it was, I would say, a stressful time.
For sure. Well, and being in the engaged phase of my life, that's definitely something that I can foresee happening in the future when we go and try to do all these new ventures that we're looking at, because we're constantly looking at new things to do and ways to expand our business, and it's not always clear how the money's going to come in and where the money's going to come from. So I'm sure that a lot of these people that will hear this will come to that realization of, hey, you know what, I just got to have those conversations, and they're not easy. And I think that's a lot of what we do in business, is having these tough conversations. So I know that we kind of just talked about some tough conversations that we have coming down the pike. How have you kind of learned over the years how to have those conversations, and how do you approach those conversations from a mindset standpoint, and then also from like, this is the structure of how I want to have that conversation, or do you just wing it and kind of go into it with a feel kind of thing?
Probably a little bit of both. I mean, my MO, I tend to, I've convinced myself, I think, that it's better to respond rather than react. And that can work for and against. There's times that I kind of wish I would have just reacted a little bit more in the moment. But I think in general, it's worked better for me, for my personality type, to just like listen to what people say or observe the situation, then step back, really think about it, and not just think about that move, but like 3 or 4 moves down the road. Like, what happens when we make this step or make this move? Who's it going to affect? How's it going to affect them? And then how do I need to get this message across? And that's worked out for me for the most part. I mean, I tend to sort of spout off and vent a little bit, and then calm down and come back and have a reasonable conversation with somebody. And I've kind of decided that everything you're doing, you're constantly, it's kind of a sales game all the time.
For sure. Sometimes
you just have to sell someone on the idea that we're about to go do something fun. Those are the easy sales. Hey, we're going to go do this. It should be fun. Okay, I'll go with you. Other times you're having to walk them through something challenging or something they don't like, but it's the right thing to do. And so I approach all those conversations with like, all right, what's the objective? How am I going to get there? How do I understand what this person's thinking so that I can present this in a way that they will come along with me?
Well, I think that's important too. You and I have a very different approach to how we do business, right? I'm more of the go, go, go. You're more of the, all right, let's take a step back and look at this from multiple different angles and figure out where we're going before we just jump in and spend a bunch of money or spend a bunch of time doing something. And I think that's something that we see a lot in not only social media, but just in everything that's hitting us constantly from a media standpoint, of people have a lack of patience these days. Like people just want to dive in and go run hot and heavy into something, then they get burnt out and they move to the next thing. So what's kind of gotten you to the point of being that patient? Like how have you developed that patience over the years to where you can take that step back and go, all right, let's evaluate this before we do something stupid?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it was like a Greek saying, know thyself. I don't know if you ever heard that quote, but I'm pretty comfortable with who I am and how I come across. And like, I've learned that authenticity matters when it comes to having these conversations with people. And so, being true to myself and realizing that, like, if I just react in the moment and spout off, it will probably come across as forced or disingenuous. So I tend to be just pretty laid back and calm about things. And I think there's a balance to what you were saying about how, like, I actually think that it's a good thing that you do things differently than I do. If we were both the same, we'd probably be muddling and just like slow to act and slow to evolve. So there's a little bit of push and pull there that I think works. And as long as we understand that, you know yourself, and I know myself, and we know each other. So that makes it to where there's nothing we need to be afraid of. It's just that little bit of push and pull that happens that kind of gets us to where maybe we can act fairly quickly, but with a plan, right? There's a way to do both.
For sure. And I think coming back to that point about like people dabbling, right? We see this all the time. Dabble. What kind of advice would you have to people that try something and then they get a couple months into it, they're like, this doesn't work, let's go try something else? What advice would you have from being obviously you're like the father figure in the company? People look up to you, people see you as the stoic that they come to when they have an issue or anything like that. You're more of the stoic figure, the patient one. And going back to the people that are dabbling, what would you say to those people that just don't have the patience to wait things out?
Well, I think that's where the talent, you have to have some talent or at least intelligence or skill to evaluate like what's really happening. If something's not working, why is it happening? First of all, look inward. What are you doing, to make it work or not work? And if you're doing everything you can, then there's some other reason. Okay, let's evaluate and find out what that is. I think what we've learned in the last few years, and we've heard this, but now we're actually seeing it, the difference between the people who make it and don't are the ones who don't quit. Yeah. And so you have to be able to recognize when something's not working because it just needs more time versus it's a bad plan. We pivoted a couple of years ago. We had a good idea at the wrong time that just didn't quite, it was difficult to execute. We felt like we were doing everything we could. It just wasn't working. And we pivoted our business. And I think that was the right thing to do. Looking back, I think we made the right decision. And it was hard to do because we spent a lot of time and energy with that first idea, getting it off the ground. But we totally made the right decision, but not very quickly. It took us a little bit of time of kind of muddling or middling, whatever, with that first idea. And then we decided, okay, it's time. We got to go do this.
Yeah. And it wasn't like something that we dabbled in and did it for a couple months and then moved on. Right. It was something that we focused on. We spent a ton of time and effort focusing on that idea, and it worked for a while. But then we got to a point where like, okay, we can, based on the market, based on the things that we're seeing, we understand that this is probably not going to be viable based on whatever market conditions. But it wasn't something that we went into, tried it for a little while and then moved on. So I think that's something important to note is that dabbling doesn't really get you anywhere. You kind of play the surface level game for a while and then you move on to the next thing. You gotta focus on one thing and try it for as long as you can. And you're going to learn a lot of things along the way. It's not all for naught. I think something that you tell me all the time is this sunk cost fallacy. Do you want to explain that and how it relates to our business and a lot of other businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people get hung up on what they've got invested in something. We've got so much time and energy in this thing, we got to see it through. And there's something too. I'm contradicting myself a little bit. It's like you have to figure out the difference between seeing it through and just recognizing right now, okay, which direction is the right way to go. And when you really step back and say, is this the right person in our company, or is this the right move for our company? It's kind of a yes or no question. If the answer is yes, you go that direction, and it may mean that you give up something that you've invested a lot of time and energy on. But if it's the right thing, and the right thing is defined by, is this going to get us to another level or create more income or whatever that is, well, then that sunk cost is meaningless. It's gone. You can't get it back. All you can do is look at it as, it helped me get to this pivot point, and now we have to make the decision that takes us to the next place in our business. And I think people kind of get hung up on good ideas, and so it's like a balance of, you want to be a starter and you want to be willing to make decisions and make changes and move quick, but you don't want to dabble too much where it's just going to be spending money and chasing shiny objects. Yeah. So you kind of have to settle into that place where you're doing new things, you're trying new things, you're evolving, but you're not taking your eye off of the main thing.
Yeah, one of my buddies said to me the other day, he goes, dude, I have this great idea, but I don't want to go spend all this time and this effort and this energy into it if it's not going to work. So how do I know if it's going to work? Well, you don't ever know if it's going to work. You just, you give it your all. And if it doesn't work, you learn a lot throughout the process. So I think that's something important as well. All right. Then you had another major pivot point later in your career when you finally broke out on your own, which on your own was the partnership that we formed and built this company. So can you explain to folks listening, what was the catalyst there that you finally decided, you know what, I've had enough. I can do this on my own, and I'm going to go do this on my own?
It was kind of a combination of things. I had been at that company that you and I were at, getting to go to, I'll just kind of name drop a little bit, getting to go to Collective Genius, which was a big mastermind. And at the time, probably the biggest mastermind of the biggest, best investors in the country. So I got to tag along with the owner of ours, and just being in the room and kind of seeing how these normal guys, kind of, I don't want to say average, they're not average, but just normal guys, were out there doing this at a very, very high level. And in the room, I felt a little out of place because I didn't own the company, but I also was like, I think I can do what they're doing, or at least lead what they're leading. And so that kind of flipped something in my mind. I had to spend another year or two working there, kind of trying to plan the exit and figure out how I was going to do it. And then really, when you came on and we started working together daily, it was like, okay, he's got a different energy than I do. He's got a different approach than I do. I think this is a good balance. And this is probably the right thing to do for us to go do this, because I think we can accomplish more together than I could by myself. If I did it by myself, I would have been happy flipping 3 houses a year and making, 6 figures. But I probably never would have got my head around the idea that it could be more, because I know that I'm not like an implementer. I can come up with good ideas. I can plan, I can strategize, I can lead, but I'll sit there and stare at my computer for 2 hours trying to figure out what to do next, where you were the guy that's like, I know how to do that. Boom, let's just do it. And by the time I'm done thinking about it, you're like, here, it's finished. Seeing how that worked, it was like, okay, now's the time. Like, this is the right thing. And so it was about a 2-year process of getting to that point. But once we made the decision, it just felt like the right thing.
So you never thought that we'd be sitting here on a podcast? when you were at the previous company, you never thought we'd have a podcast that we're sitting here talking about business, talking about how we've grown over the past 5 years?
No, I have serious imposter syndrome, so it takes a while for me to feel like we deserve to be heard. Fair.
But I mean, it's hard to deny the results. And I think what you said, going back to some of those guys that were at Collective Genius, is another great point. These guys are just average guys. Like, we're a part of Investor Fuel now, and these guys are just they're normal people. They're not average, like you said, but they're normal people. They just consistently produce, and they consistently take the same action that gets them to an outcome that has already been done by hundreds and hundreds and thousands of other investors. You take the blueprint and you go implement it. But there's so many people that think this just needs to be so fast. I need to make $1 million this year. I need to make $1 million right now. It's not the way this industry works. And it's rarely how any industry works. Unless you want to be TikTok famous, I don't see a route where you can just overnight be a success and make $1 billion.
Yeah. And I think, like, I can't pinpoint when our business sort of like crossed over into a different place. I know that at some point, we started managing the finances differently. We talked about this the other day. You know, right up front, it was like every house mattered. We looked at every house. Oh, we have to make this amount. Oh, we have to do this on every house. Well, now we're confident in our deal flow. So when you're confident in your deal flow, your ability to acquire properties, well, then now we're running the business like a real business where we're looking at it just like, okay, we need to make X amount of dollars. We need to have this much revenue come in every month. Well, you know, even as we're setting our goals, we continually exceed our goals as we're making them. It's like we're constantly upping the game and pushing ourselves. And, you know, literally 3 months ago, I was like, we need to bring in $80,000 a month. Well, we've brought in over $100,000 a month every month since then. I think this year, you know, we'll probably average somewhere in the neighborhood of 140 to 150 in earnings and every month. And 3 months ago, I was like, oh, man, I hope we can make 80,000. And so it's just, I think, you know, that change in the mindset of the finances, I couldn't even tell you the day it happened. It's just now I'm looking back going, okay, you know, this is working.
Well, and I think one of the things to point out is that's just one of the companies that we have. That doesn't include any of the other stuff. That's just one company that does strictly buying and wholesaling, stuff like that. We have a whole build operation that we've built. We have a security company. We also have the painting company. So we're 5 years in, and all of these opportunities kind of presented themselves because we kept our head down and stayed focused on first things first and kept doing the things that we were seeing other people do that got them to a point where they had these opportunities and these doors open. So for the people out there, there's a path. And when you follow down that path, there's other things that come up and other opportunities. And a lot of them are shiny objects, but you're going to get those diamonds in the rough that you can use to expand your operation, expand your business, and continue to grow. So when you were making that move, what was that internal battle like when you were finally stepping out after 15, 20 years, kind of either making very little or whatever on the painting side of things when you ran that painting company, and then moving into just the daily grind of working for somebody else and trying to grow their business. So what was that internal battle like? I think a lot of people are probably going through that internal battle right now, and it's important that they know that they're not alone.
Yeah, I think, you know, everybody's situation is going to be different. I've heard a lot of people say things like burn the boats or whatever. And it's like, well, in some ways the right move for some people is to just cut the ties, jump in head first, have no safety net, and go do it, and they'll succeed. Other people, it may not be that simple. You know, stage of life matters. Do you have kids? Do you have, what are your expenses? How are you going to support your family? Do you have savings in place? I mean, any kind of retirement, these kinds of questions all come up. So like everybody's battle is going to be slightly different in terms of what they feel like they can do right now. For me, I wrestled with it for a long time because my kids were like middle school, early high school age. I knew my expenses were not going down. They were getting ready to start driving. You know, we had to start thinking about college. We had a lot of things like that were coming up. You know, a family of four, we didn't necessarily want to live in a 900 square foot house, so I couldn't like reduce expenses. So for me, it was just a matter of kind of putting the pieces together, recognizing that, okay, we may sort of go backwards a little bit some months, but we've got some cushion. We can make up for that. This gives us the opportunity, but it was very motivating to know like, all right, I've got like a 3-month window. If we don't start bringing in some money in 3 months, this is going to be tough. But I don't know. It just seemed like every time we decided to go find some money, we just could go sell something, whether it's buying a flip or finding a money partner or whatever it was. It's like whenever we needed it, we just could go do it. And there, a lot of that comes back to just being yourself, being authentic, having a conversation with people. Don't be afraid to talk about what you're doing. That I'm not a real mystical guy, but there is something to the idea of when you verbalize something and put it out there that opportunities arise. I think it's just because you're kind of you're making it known what you're trying to accomplish, and people want to help generally. So when you say things like, we're looking for an investor. Oh, well, I know somebody you should talk to. And just one conversation leads to another, things just open up. So I think I've always been confident. Just when I was sort of part-time running the business, painting and doing those kinds of things, I got comfortable with the idea that I could just go rustle the bushes and get work and get money and get, because money just kind of comes and goes. And so once I got comfortable with that idea that we could just go get money when we needed it, then I didn't have a whole lot to fear. And so then it became, okay, let's focus on building a business and a foundation that will one day look back and go, okay, we're doing it, which I feel like that's what's happening now.
I don't think that mystical sentence would ever come out of your mouth about 3 years ago. So
yeah,
I want to take a little bit of credit for that.
It's the secret. It's been secret.
Yeah. There's a movie or something or a book or that I tried to get you to read, but you wanted me to give you the cliff notes before you'd read the book.
Yeah.
So
readings for suckers.
Yeah. I think Hormozy said that somewhere. Now that we've kind of hammered that out, and gone over your past and what got you here and some of the those pivot points that brought us to where we are, what are you excited about in the business moving forward? We got 2024 approaching. What are you excited about for 2024 and beyond? Some of the projects that we're working on or that you're working on. Hell, I don't even know what you do half the time.
Half the time I'm just chasing money and making sure we have things that we need to have and getting ready for next month or quarter. But long term, I love the idea of having multiple streams of revenue. I think if you can be smart about those things, not have too many high risk opportunities and more like steady value propositions. I'm a big believer in you get paid because people value what you provide. That's it. I mean, if you're getting paid some other way, you're probably either stealing or lying to people or like somehow tricking the market. Not interested in that. That's a short-term way to earn. I think you can get away with that kind of stuff for a little bit, but eventually people will figure you out. So for me, it's like, how do we create something that is actually valuable to people? And, obviously what we do with our house buying operation, we've saved 90 homes, people from getting foreclosed in the last 12 months. Mm-hmm. That's really valuable to some people that are in really tough situations. As a result, we've also bought, 50 houses in that time. So it can be win-win, right? We're looking at a painting company. We're closing on a painting company this month. And so we'll now own a functioning,
cash flowing.
Cash flowing painting company that's in place. It's now going to be something that we will have the opportunity to grow. Well, I can guarantee you with today's, the way that the world's working right now, we're not going to run out of work with a painting company. Like nobody wants to do anything. So we're going to offer that service and we'll never run out of work. I guarantee we will, that business will just be a constant thing that we can grow steadily or however we want to. I have no concerns about our ability to earn with that business. The security business, another thing that had extreme value now, the way things are going, people are getting, desperate. And so
AI is making everything scary. So security.
Yeah. So cybersecurity. Yeah. And then, people just flat out stealing stuff. I mean, it's just becoming more and more rampant. I don't know if that's because we're aware of it more with social media or if it's happening more, but that business is already, starting to thrive, and it's in its infancy, literally months into it. And so I feel like we've got some low risk, service-based, value-based companies that we can count on a certain amount of income. If we start to see the numbers dip, we can probably refocus a little bit and get them back up. They're just those kinds of businesses. So for me, that's what I'm excited about, is just knowing that we've got like really viable businesses, and maybe the one flyer we're taking is on some new construction.
Yeah.
But that's a little bit more, I don't want to say gut feel. We understand the market and we kind of know what's happening because of our presence in real estate, as agents and also as people that are buying and selling houses. I don't feel like it's a lot of risk on the new construction side. I think that you're already starting to see builders slow down. Well, Warren Buffett is the king of when people are running, he gets in there and invests. Well, builders are slowing down. So guess what? It's the best time to build.
Well, especially with what we're doing and the affordable housing types thing. I don't see that market slowing down anytime soon. People still need housing that's affordable. Oh,
more than ever. Yeah.
Yep.
With rates being what and as rates come down, I don't think that's going to slow down the affordable side. I think people are just going to be, there's going to be a real need for inventory.
So explain one of the theories that you have that we've talked about. You're going to go against everything that most investors talk about when you say that your new theory and your new thought and the new direction that we're going is towards not buying a gaggle of rental properties. It's now towards buying service-based companies. Explain the logic, explain the math, and explain to people why that's a shift that we're making in our business.
Well, I'm certainly not going to tell someone they shouldn't buy real estate long-term. We are going to do that to some degree, probably one to two houses a quarter. And I think that's smart. I just think, again, that's kind of a diversification thing. I'm 47. I still like working. I'm actually an empty nester now, so I have more available time. And so I love what we're doing, and I want to come in every day and keep working. I'm not looking to retire. So, it kind of depends on what you're after. We're not looking to step back and cut down our time. We like what we do. We want to build something big. So real estate, passive income in real estate, I don't know. For me, a little bit of it is a little bit boring. It's also kind of a pain in the neck. I don't love property management. I don't love hiring property managers, and I really don't love tenants. And so the cash flow right now is difficult to get. Interest rates are high and prices are high. Rent has not actually really kept up because affordability has become such a problem. So cash flow is really tough to get. If you cash flow $250 a month net on a property, you've done well. Well, we're acquiring a painting company that is going to cash flow somewhere in the neighborhood of $15,000 to $20,000 net per month. In one fell swoop, we're buying the cash flow of 30 to 60 rentals, and we don't have tenants to deal with. Yeah, we have customers.
How much did that cost us to get to that? How much did it cost us to buy that company?
We're buying that company for less than 1 year of revenue from that company, so we negotiated a very good deal from a seller who's done a really good job, and he's excited to work with us because he was really just concerned about his people, and he's glad to have someone coming on to take over that actually has done this before. So it's a good fit, but we bought that for less than a year's profit. So the price on it is extremely good. Our net cash flow is extremely high. And yes, we have to deal with customers, but it's kind of, these guys can come in and paint a house in 2 days. So we're not dealing with that customer for a long period of time. We have an opportunity to make them happy very quickly, get paid and move on, and everybody's good. So to me, it's like we picked up 30 plus rentals instantly, maybe 50, you could argue.
Well, and I think a good point to share is the cash that we had to bring to the table to close this is about the same, if not less, than what it would be to close on one single family
rental
property, one rental
Correct.
property. The cash that we brought to close is less than one rental property.
Correct. Yeah. So our upside's extremely high, our downside's extremely low. And, the one argument you can make, and I will say for real estate, is you build equity, more equity over time. And there is value to that a lot. Mm-hmm. But as far as the amount of effort it's going to take for us to earn the cash flow, it's a tenth of what it would take to get that.
It's basically an ATM.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, cool. As we wrap up, I want to hit with the rapid reaction segment where I'm just going to spew out a bunch of unconventional scenarios, hypothetical business dilemmas, and you're going to hit me with your answers, your spur of the moment answers. So,
this is dangerous.
This is fun. We can clip out anything that you don't want in here, but this is supposed to be fun. So our superpower strategy question. If you could have one business related superpower, like instant market prediction, unbeatable negotiation skills, stuff like that, what would it be?
Public speaking.
Public speaking?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. I like it.
I think I've been told that I appear trustworthy
until you open your mouth.
Yeah, until I speak. So I think I think it would be fun to just be really comfortable. And I am pretty comfortable talking about real estate. I don't get a whole lot of opportunities to speak about it, but I think, just being able to kind of have that instant respect and be someone that people want to hear talk. That's kind of a secret desire.
We can work on that.
Yeah.
All right. Question 2, historical figure consultation. If you could get business advice from any historical figure, dead or alive, who would it be?
Dead or alive?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've always loved Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
So I would love to spend time with him. Although, here's a funny one. No one's going to think of this, but, the guy that really got me going 25 years ago was Carlton Sheets. I don't know if you even know who he is.
I have no idea who that is.
He was the first guy on TV that was talking about how to buy real estate with no down payment.
Really?
And he had a whole CD course, which I bought. And at the time, it was just over my head. I mean, I tried to learn it and it was like, okay, but I was too scared to go try to do anything.
Yeah.
But that guy had a vision and he was ahead of everybody else. And he got on TV.
Still doing that today.
Oh, yeah. And he had it was like 32 CDs that you could buy for $199 or whatever it was.
Wow.
And if you just implemented what he was teaching, you could go buy houses without any money down. I mean, he was really good at it. And so I think he passed away. I never did check, but I would have loved to have spent some time with him too.
Perfect. I don't think anyone else is going to say that name.
Nobody's coming up with that.
No. All right. Life swap. If you had to swap lives with any historical figure and run their business, who would it be?
Run their business.
They can be dead. They can be alive. Whatever.
No, it'd be. Well, now it's John Sherman, the owner of the Royals. Like that would be like the dream.
I love it.
The dream job. I would love to run the Royals.
Perfect. That's awesome. Yeah, they've been bad for a while, so hopefully you could go in and do a better job than them.
Nah, they're doing fine. They'll be good next year.
I'm a Cardinals fan. Sorry, I really am biased on that. Mine would be the Chiefs. I'd rather run the Chiefs. I don't know about you, but
I'd take that too.
So if you could go back and you had all the money in the world and you could start a completely different business, you could start whatever you wanted. You just had all the money to go and start a business. What would it be?
Amazon. That thing. I just look at how many packages arrive at my door, and we're reasonable people. And if reasonable people can spend that much money at one place,
fair enough.
They're just going to dominate.
Fair enough. I love it. Well, cool. All right. Well, this was the first episode of the Be Elite podcast, and this thing's going to air at some point. We'll get you all the details. You can post it all over your social media. I know how big of a social media guru you are. And
hey, that's on my goal. It's on my level 10 goals for the year is to create a personal brand. So this is step one. Perfect.
Good deal. We'll get you hooked up with our editor and get your stuff pushed out there. So cool. Well, thanks everybody for joining for our inaugural episode of the Be Elite podcast. We're aiming to do a bunch of these coming up in 2024 and beyond. So look forward to seeing everybody in the next episode. Until then, take care. Go buy some real estate. Maybe buy some businesses.